Hello, and welcome to the Business and IT Alignment Session, an essential partnership for automation success. I'm here with Junaid Ahmed, Corporate Vice President of Finance for Applied Materials, and Ted Hansen, the Vice President of GIS with Applied Materials. My name is Seth Catelli. I'm the Area Vice President for America's Strategic Engagements, and really pleased to be able to share with you the Applied Materials automation story. Applied Materials is the world's #1 semiconductor and display equipment company. They're headquartered in Silicon Valley, have over 15 billion in revenue, over 22,000 employees. Applied Materials is one of Fortune's most admired companies of 2020. You may not know this, but virtually every new chip or advanced display in the world is produced using a solution from Applied Materials. And it's no wonder why they have over 13,000 patents and invest $2 billion in R&D on an annual basis. So we're here to talk about the business and IT alignment that they've been able to drive and really highlight the leadership thinking that they have put together Applied Materials for their agile finance transformation effort. This is finance driving strong business and IT alignment within this program. And here are some of the results that they are having. They're on path to over 250 automations in the first year of their automation program. In fact, since they've started their build part of their project 7 months ago, they already have 170 automations in production. So let's start. Junaid, Applied Materials automation journey began in finance. What was the driving factor in you deciding to use automation aggressively?
Seth, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I want to set some business context for the decision that we drove. Applied Materials has had a really strong past 5 years of growth, and as we looked ahead, we saw another high period of growth based on the AI big data market inflection. But however, we also knew that finance budgets weren't going to scale in line with that growth. And in addition to that, we knew that business complexity is increasing, and the dynamic nature of the business environment was also adding a new layer of complexity. So finance was being asked to not grow resources, provide not sustained support into the business, but actually enhance support. So we needed to create a greater new capacity in the organization, keep the resource pool the same, but enhance our support to the business. So that really drove us to say, we need to automate the basic rules-based tasks within the organization so we can free up the time, free up the bandwidth to really drive this better enhanced support. And we really focused in on automation. Now, once you automate and free up the bandwidth, you can redeploy it in multiple ways. And we did the following, looking to really get people to do more value-added work for better support into the business, getting people to actually drive greater insights about the business by spending more time in the business. And then thirdly, using the time to upskill the finance employees to, again, be better practitioners and drive better support. And last but not least, really help take the time to have a better work-life balance. We wanted our employees to have a more sustainable work-life balance that's better for them and better for the company. So those were the key factors driving the aggressive nature of our automation program.
Thank you. I think that work-life balance, especially, I've seen how aggressively you guys have been able to implement that within the company, and it's been really well received. But when you think about IT, Junaid, how did you go about establishing automation capability with IT?
Yep, it's a good question. So if you're driving alignment, very important to be aligned at the top, right, of the organization. Now, we benefited because we already had great CFO-CIO alignment because of the Agile Finance initiative that we had already kicked off. So we had that precedent and we benefited from it. But when we started thinking about automation, what we did was form a cross-functional team, small team from finance and IT. So people from Ted's team and people from finance. And we asked them to spend several months really investigating, how does RPA work? How can we leverage it? How are other people leveraging it? Talk to the platform vendors, we did some field checks of other finance organizations, how they were using it. So we educated ourselves on the viability of the technology and the effectiveness of the technology. Now, what this was, what the cross-functional nature of the team did was that we had strong IT alignment from day one, right? It wasn't that finance went off and did this came back and told IT, we need RPA. No, it was a joint effort from day one that drove inherent alignment, from the beginning. And then, we looked inside our organization and saw that, hey, there's all these number of small rules-based tasks across our organization that can benefit from this technology. And RPA, as we saw it, was a purpose-built, flexible application to fill this white space, to fill this long tail of manual tasks, right? The ability to automate that and free up what was a large number of total bandwidth for us potential. So very appealing.
Ted, let's bring you into the conversation. From an IT perspective, what was the key to establishing this partnership with finance to deploy this new automation technology?
I'm going to key in on 4 areas, Seth. First is a repeat, but I want to reiterate Junaid's comment about the CFO-CIO alignment across the whole Agile Finance program and how critical that was to program success. I think second, Junaid had invited me early on to be a member of the Agile Finance Strategy Office, which provided the opportunity for deep and ongoing understanding of the business goals, the alignment around technology needs, implementation roadmaps, and program execution, particularly as it related to RPA. I think third, we recognized out of the gate that we needed knowledge and competencies that spanned across both the finance and IT organization, including broad and deep business process knowledge, broad and deep business application knowledge, IT infrastructure knowledge, security, and kind of the list went on. I think the final area is we were starting from a very strong base. So we had a history over many years of working together on successful technology projects and had recently executed some new technology introductions as part of earlier Agile Finance initiatives. Now, RPA was another new technology introduction, and we knew from our prior experiences that, we'd run into roadblocks, we'd have issues, we wouldn't get everything right the first time, but I think we had the belief and confidence and skill sets across the team to say that was okay because we were going to be successful.
So Ted, I'd be curious, what was the funding model as you started in one particular business unit and then as you needed to take it across the enterprise?
Let me start out, Seth, with just a little bit of background about our overall IT spend funding model, as it's a bit complicated. So our core corporate IT organization annual funding falls into 2 broad buckets. First, it includes costs to operate and maintain our global IT infrastructure and applications. That's running our data center, running our enterprise apps, et cetera. The second bucket covers dollars that the corporation provides to us for certain large enterprise level projects. And over the past few years, these dollars have really been focused on bringing business units and acquisitions into our integrated engineering and ERP footprint. The third source of funding comes from our business units and functions, such as finance, who include in their budgets funding for discretionary IT-enabled projects to achieve target business benefits. In essence, the BU function brings the dollars. The project goes through the established IT prioritization and assessment process. We jointly execute the project, and the business unit is responsible for the ROI. Once projects go live, there's a decision point we make as to whether the business unit or function continues to fund the sustaining costs because it is really function specific, or if it rolls into our enterprise spend as an enterprise capability. RPA with finance really fell into this latter category. So finance brought the project funding dollars for the initial license purchase as well as the implementation and first year support, because the focus really was entirely on finance business processes and the Agile Finance initiative. The sustaining support costs, however, for the platform and for the finance bots that we have put in production and will be putting into production is transitioning into IT this year. And why is that? Well, we recognize that the RPA platform and the support need to be an enterprise capability that we can extend and expand as we move beyond finance. So that's why we're picking it up. And our expectation is as we get additional organizations, whether it's operations or sales or HR, who come to us for bot RPA initiatives next year, we'd follow the same model. They would fund the implementation, and then we would roll that into our sustaining scalable infrastructure.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me just emphasize, over 250 automations in year one is the goal, and you are on path to hit that. 7 months in is a great time to check in with you. My understanding, Junaid, is you have over 170 deployed automations since you've been started your build part of your project. You're going big, you're going fast. Why did you decide to take that type of approach?
Why did we go big? Why did we go fast? Well, as I stated, we had a very clear goal in finance, right? To achieve this, create this capacity within the organization and create it fast. So what does that mean? That means that we really needed to move the needle. And for us, that meant hitting a certain big threshold of automation footprint for this to make really viable sense to us, right? We needed to achieve scale. Otherwise, our investment in time and effort into the RPA, deploying RPA, wasn't really going to be worth it. Now, I'll tell you what some associated benefits that came about to us. Number one, because we went big, we really surveyed the landscape really well, and that allowed us to hone in on the most valuable automations rather than just pick the first ones that came to the table, right? That was a big benefit. And another one was that we were able to really motivate the process owners and process SMEs on the finance side because we were providing meaningful, tangible benefit to them in a very short amount of time. And that really got them motivated. The value proposition was very strong for them. And getting their time is difficult. They're busy people. We already had a constrained organization from a resource standpoint. Getting these people motivated actually was a very, very powerful thing that we got done. And I think these two benefits really played a strong part for us.
That makes a ton of sense. What you just shared was really powerful, and I think is a nice foundation for any change management program. That's an IT program, but it really affects people. Ted, why did this approach make sense from a technical perspective?
I have to say that initially for my team, the go big, go fast approach kind of went from can we do this to how do we do this? And I think taking the big picture approach forced us to take a holistic big picture view of not only the business automation priorities and roadmap, but what we needed to do as an IT organization to leverage and or change our standards, our policies, and our processes, as well as effectively plan and size our IT infrastructure for efficiency, performance, and scale as we had this deployment and accelerated deployment of bots. A go small approach has merits and certainly is an option for some organizations. But we saw risks of falling into kind of a constant redo loop in terms of designing standards, processes, and putting in place infrastructure, and then having to revisit that every time we looked at bringing new bots into the equation. For example, from a process standpoint, if we had just looked at automating things within our SAP environment, we would likely have taken a more narrow view and missed things that apply as we consider business processes that were in SAP, but also crossed into other applications, whether it was email or ServiceNow or SharePoint or any other applications that were in the scope of process automation. So kind of that go big, go fast forces you to take that holistic kind of longer term view as to what we need to do, not only be successful tactically, but strategically.
Thank you for that. Now, go big, go fast isn't without its speed bumps, right? Junaid, I'd be curious, how did you handle choosing which processes to automate versus kind of going back and standardizing that process?
Yeah, Seth, this is a good question, and it's one that is faced by many teams. Do we standardize and then automate, or do we automate as is? And standardizing processes in large, global, complex companies is difficult. It's difficult because it's complicated and it's very time-consuming effort. Everyone agrees that we should do it, but no one seems to get enough time to actually get it done. So the approach we took here was a different one. What we did was we went the route of let's standardize through automation. And what does that mean? Well, what that means is that we got people together, right? The relevant ones for the use cases that, let's say, what we're doing. And we said, we're going to automate as is. However, we want you to take the opportunity, given all of you are here talking about the process, to look at standardization opportunities. And when you find them, you will benefit from it. Why? Because instead of making 3 automations for each of you guys, each of the teams separately, we can make 1 automation, deploy it faster, give you the benefit faster. So there's an inherent motivation and value proposition, again, for the teams to look at the process in play, which is slightly nuanced by region, let's say, for example, and try to standardize a large part of that so they can actually leverage the same automation. So that's kind of how we did, and it was very effective. People came together, and getting people together itself is a difficult proposition because everyone is busy. But they came for the automation, and then we packaged in the standardization as and when it made sense. We didn't slow things down, but naturally we got the right people in the room. We looked for standardization opportunities, and we took advantage of them. That makes sense. So that's kind of how we did it. I think that there's a big risk if you put a prerequisite of standardization for your automation. It becomes a execution risk, in my opinion. So our mantra was standardize through automation.
All the pieces of an organization that you would have to interact with really for the success of an automation operating model. Your scope just isn't finance or any individual business unit. Can you share who else you had to align with when you thought about supporting automation enterprise-wide?
Yeah, Seth, it might be easier and a shorter answer to share with you the organizations we didn't have to align with. In all seriousness, we had not only extensive alignment across the global financial organization, given the scope of the bot deployment we talked about earlier, but extensive alignment across a large part of our IT organization. But we still have a very complex landscape with many teams supporting different components. We had to work extensively with our infrastructure team, the guys who handle the servers, the databases, the operating systems, the network, multiple different application development and support teams to bring that expertise into the automation. Our identity management team, what kind of identity we're going to provide these bots who are transacting across our landscape. And a lot of time with our information security team to understand any risks that this technology may bring. Now, in addition to the internal IT alignment, there has been and continues to be ongoing work with our internal audit organization as we look at the SOX, internal control, and risk impacts of the bots and the processes we're automating. Our law department from a data privacy and data protection perspective, and with our IT service provider ecosystem to assess and or help us build the capabilities to staff and scale our RPA support model.
Junaid, I'm thinking about the fact that in your pillar or your line of business, you had a scope that you were driving, and yet as a leader in the company partnering with IT, you also want to see this expand to the next business unit and the next business unit. And as it does so, it should be easier, right? There should be lessons learned and leverage in doing that. How do you not only sustain the program, but accelerate momentum over time after that initial excitement?
The best way to drive momentum in the automation program, or any program for that matter, is to get really tangible benefit realization in front of the stakeholders. People see value, people see benefit, people want more of it. And then they're willing to spend the time to drive more automation within their teams. Now, that's great, but you really need to have a very robust process in place that supports the end-to-end automation lifecycle. You need a strong AOM, an automation operating model. You need a robust COE infrastructure that really helps enable everyone from the business to the COE and other stakeholders. So you need that holistic view. What did we do? From day one, we said, we're going to build a very robust AOM, and we're going to make sure we have a comprehensive COE in place to support not just finance, but with the longer term view that other organizations were going to participate in the future and they could leverage this infrastructure that we put in place. Seeing finance successful, that has had a lot of benefit, right? Really tangible benefit realization being observed. And what it's done is lower the bar for other organizations to participate. Their risk has been lowered because they've seen what we've done and been successful at. But now that they're coming on board, they're leveraging this infrastructure that we're playing. So they don't have to relearn and reestablish all of this infrastructure for their automation programs. One other thing I believe is important, when you start, how successful you are in your initial use cases is so important, because that sets the momentum, that sets the confidence levels in that organization. So initial use case selection and execution, very, very important, super important.
You had to make a lot of hard decisions, and there were many whys in the road, and you had to choose which way to go. The lesson learns there are so important. And what would you share with other senior leaders that are listening to this session who are approaching some of these same decisions?
Number one, the platform vendors, which is UiPath for us. It's not just, it's about the platform and the product, but it's much more than that. What you really need to diligence is it's about the customer support infrastructure that you will need. And it's also about the partner ecosystem that you will need. Not just implementation partners of the platform, but other partners, into platform integrations to other applications. All of this becomes very meaningful when you're running a large program. So number one is the platform vendor, customer support infrastructure, and partner ecosystem. Number two, on the implementation side, pick your partner wisely. It's all about experience. You need a group of automation specialists who've been there, done that, so they can engage with your teams in an efficient and effective manner. Build confidence that, yes, this is possible. These automations will work. They will deliver the benefit to you. Everyone is watching, right? And credibility goes a long way. So experience for your integration partner. Number three is about quality of automations built. You've got to have sustainability and steady state operation in mind from day one. You've got to be building quality automations. Again, that drives the confidence level within the organization that this is not going to become a burden on them. This is actually going to play out the way you are saying it will play out. So I would say those three things for me, Seth, are key lessons learned and meaningful takeaways.
Ted, what would you add? Thank you, Junaid.
And I'm going to rapid fire a handful of other ones. First, bring in a senior IT leader from your organization who has knowledge and influence across IT, and preferably someone who's experienced in new technology introduction and scaling a new capability. I did this, but quite frankly, I was probably a couple months later than would have been ideal, and it forced us to play a little bit of catch up. Reach out to and through your IT organization early and often. I mentioned earlier all of the touch points within IT. I've spent years doing ERP-related work, and I've always joked that the ERP acronym meant everyone's required to participate. I think from an RPA perspective, for IT, it's required participation from all. I think the third area is leverage your existing IT methodologies and processes wherever you can. RPA brings a new set of nomenclature, and it appears very different. But I think you'll find you can leverage a lot of the processes that have served you well and help reduce the change impact within your IT organization. Fourth, ensure you factor your bot production footprint into your impact assessments for infrastructure and application changes. Bots do what humans do. and they're not likely to break things once they're deployed. But you will find that other changes you make to your environment are much more likely to break your production bots. And finally, RPA is a great technology. We've been very pleased with the capabilities that the UiPath platform has brought to us, but it's not a solution for all automations. It's a hammer for you, but not every automation possibility is a nail. So make sure you've got a best technology fit assessment as you look at your automation candidates. For some, it will be RPA. For some, it will be something else.
That's awesome, Ted. I couldn't sum it up any better. Your 5 points and really, Junaid, your 3 points really did sum up how to take on automations, an automation program that has strong business and IT alignment, and how to do it in a very particular way, which is to go big and to go fast and take that mentality into your program. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Junaid.